This episode of the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast is brought to you by Gema. Gema's Optiflex Pro manual gun uses Power Boost technology, which gives you the industry's highest charging power at 110,000 volts and 110 microamps, allowing for faster and more efficient powder coating. We're handing you more power, more quality, and more control. For a demonstration, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gema.
Hello, all you powder coating fans, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. Thanks a lot for taking time to join us. We really appreciate your support. I'm your host, Joe Powder, a.k.a. Kevin Biller, and with me is my esteemed colleague, sidekick, and the powder coating industry's own elf on a shelf, Nathan. He's Powder Coating Research's formulator dude.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother... We're broadcasting from the Powder Coating Research Group studios in Columbus, Ohio. Just so you know, the purpose of the Ask Joe Powder podcast is to bring news and technical know-how to the global powder coating community. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah, but before we do...
Shout out!
I'd like to give a shout-out, and this is kind of a collective shout-out. This shout-out goes to the leadership of women in the powder coating world. I'll give you a little bit of background on this. Back in August of 2016, I wrote an editorial column, and I entitled it 51%. You wonder, 51%, what is that about? Well, I lamented about the dearth of women in our venerated powder coating industry. I reflected on my decades of experience, and although women represent nearly 51% of the world's population, only a few women could be found in powder coating's front offices, laboratories, and production facilities, because these were all staffed predominantly by men. Well, fast forward to 2020, and the landscape has changed significantly. Just look at the leadership of four of the largest powder coating producers in the world, and it's obvious that the glass ceiling has been shattered. Just a couple weeks ago, Axalta appointed Shelley Bausch as their Senior Vice President, Global Industrial Coatings, effective January 1, 2021. So hats off to Ms. Bausch, as she is eminently qualified to lead Axalta's massive industrial coatings division. She's had a great career thus far, spanning the coatings industry, including a stint at Carlisle Companies, where she led the Asia-Pacific region. And before Carlisle, she led the industrial coatings business for PPG in 2014 and through 2017. And before that, she spent 25 years at Dow Corning Corporation. I'd like to mention another prominent high-level manager in the powder coating industry. That's Daniela Vlad, who is the business unit managing director for AkzoNobel's powder coating division, which she's a business leader for the world's largest powder coating enterprise. And her background, she got her start in the industry at Shell Chemicals and moved into management roles at Philips Corporation, and for the last 11 years she's been at AkzoNobel. Her steady and focused leadership has helped the Interpon team navigate the unexpected 2020 headwinds. Another fresh face in our industry leadership is Courtney Deemer. She was recently appointed as PPG's Global Business Director for powder coatings. She's been a fixture there since she started as a sales rep in Western Michigan back in the year 2005. And she's risen through the ranks in ever-increasing responsibility in the heavy-duty equipment and division and the automotive parts and accessories division. Also in the PPG fold is Shelley Verdun, who is the business manager, powder coatings. I think that's mainly in North America. She's been at PPG since 1988 and started as a chemist and eventually transitioned into the global program manager for industrial coatings in powder coatings. She also capably serves on the board of directors for the Powder Coating Institute. The list of women senior managers in the powder coating industry would not be complete without mentioning Tabitha McLeish, who's the global marketing director for Sherwin-Williams in powder coatings. Ms. McLeish is another chemist who turned into a business leader, as she had previously spent 10 years as a senior scientist / group leader for back when Roman Haas had the powder coating division, which formerly of Morton and now AkzoNobel. So it's heartening to observe this seismic shift in new leaders in our industry. So congratulations to all the women who have risen to the upper echelons in these global enterprises. They paved the way for a more balanced and integrated management of our dynamic industry. And as we all know, the women leaders in the future will be standing on the shoulders of these trailblazers. Okay, now some news in our Guess What segment.
Guess what?
All right, this one comes from the International Paint and Coatings magazine. Adapta announced that they're launching a new anti-graffiti coating. They're calling it Anti-Graffiti HCR, which stands for High Chemical Resistance. And the concept here is to use technology to counter vandalism and graffiti by coating structures of public utility, basically the first 2 to 3 meters of buildings from street level, and they're doing that by facilitating cleaning of the surfaces. This anti-graffiti coating can be used on public goods such as street furniture, train and subway wagons, buses, facades, door and window frames, and the cladding of public buildings. So based on their testing, they're pretty confident that this is going to be the best anti-graffiti powder that's out in the market. Because there are others that exist, but according to their testing, they're saying that it's really high-quality stuff. And you can find more info on that at adaptacolor.com.
Sounds like good stuff. I think, their technology attacks the graffiti twofold. It's one, the graffiti doesn't stick so well because of its high chemical resistance, but also because of its high chemical resistance, it's very resistant to cleaning solvents, which, just think about it, could be white spirits or xylene, acetone, or MEK. So, sounds like real good stuff.
All right, and here's another item from IPCM. Evonik announced that they're launching a matting agent for powder coatings. It's called Spheralex DP0115. It's a precipitated silica, and it works for matting powder coatings. So being a dry additive, it's not dependent on cure temperature. It will work across different chemistries and formulations. So it can be used for everything from super durable polyesters, clear acrylics, and get a consistent and uniform high surface quality with a matte coating. It also incorporates easily into the raw material premix and disperses evenly through the extruder. And so it's, uniformly distributed in the final powder.
Yeah, we've had a a quick look at this material in our laboratory, and it does seem to give very good gloss lowering without affecting the melt viscosity or the texture of the coating. So it looks like it's pretty promising stuff.
And being silica, it also should give it some more mechanical properties too. They say, could have a positive effect on hardness, flexibility, things like that, in addition to just reducing the actual gloss measurement.
One last thing about you mentioned it's silica, and I think our listeners should be aware that this is not crystalline silica, so it's safe. It's safe to use. It's amorphous, and the particles are spherical. So looks like it's pretty good stuff.
All right, and finally, the European Coatings Journal reports that the call for papers is out for the Abrafati show. And that's the International Coatings Congress that takes place in September of 2021. And that's the one that takes place in Brazil. So the call for papers is open until March 10th. And they're looking for any kind of new technology having to do with coatings and focusing on technical and scientific presentations, and less so on advertisements or blatant sales type content. So if you want to check that out, abrafatishow.com.br.
It's interesting you mentioned that it's the 28th through 30th, which, you know what, the European Coating Show has been rescheduled for the 14th through 16th of September. And our powder coating summit is also in September, so it's going to be a pretty busy September. I think people are going to have to divide their attention.
Yeah, I think most of the shows from the first half of the year kind of got crammed into the second half of 2021, so it should be pretty interesting.
Yep, it's these times they are a little strange. Okay, well now it's time for our question and answer portion of our podcast.
Do you have a question? Ask Joe Powder. Well, you can ask him. Ask Joe Powder. He has the answer that'll advance your powder coating. It's the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast.
Okay, and our first question comes from Shafiullah Khan from Pakistan. He says, Dear Joe, I hope this email will find you in good health and happiness. Here in Pakistan, the situation is again affecting with COVID-19. Schools and all educational institutes have been announced to close until January 2021. But we need your expert guidelines for working on some new projects in powder coating R&D. What would you suggest? Which segment should we focus to work on? Kindly share some ideas and hints. Thanks in advance.
Hey, Shafiullah. It's nice to hear from you. He's a long-time not collaborator, but long-time listener to our Ask Joe Powder embellishments. I say embellishments. Anyway, thanks for your message. You've got a broad-based question, and as you can tell, it's difficult to give you one answer. So, the first thing I would be asking you is, what are your customers or your potential customers looking for? And what markets are they looking into? Really, your main question is, where can some new technology or innovation solve a market and or customer need? I'll go over a few that I can think of right off the top of my head. Low temperature cure is always a good area to explore. And as you know, the powder coating industry has been really trying to move technology into non-metallic substrates, and the big ones, medium density fiber boards. So, that's an area that you should probably contemplate. Depending on what part of the globe you're in, MDF is an important part of the furniture industry. So I would question, in your part of the world, is the furniture industry looking for alternate coatings for things like MDF? I would talk to them and see what they have to say. The thing that's important in any kind of new technology is to get a good idea what they're looking for. And this usually is embodied in a specification. Even if the specification's for maybe a liquid coating or some other product, you'll get an idea what kind of stain resistance or heat resistance or abrasion resistance or things like that. The other area, and it's kind of along the lines of alternate substrates, would be composites. Are people looking to powder coat things like composites, maybe glass-filled composites, and things of that nature? So would the development of a low-temperature cure product meet those types of needs? And when we're talking about low-temperature cure, there's two different avenues that can be considered. One of them is thermosetting cure, which is usually coupled with infrared curing. And there's also UV cure powder coatings, which is pretty specific stuff, and it typically involves infrared followed by ultraviolet light or UV cure lamps, mostly focused on two-dimensional items. So at least it's a good place to start. A couple other areas to consider would be powder coatings with enhanced corrosion resistance. I know there's been a move in the industry for replacing two-coat systems where these two-coat systems may be comprised of maybe an epoxy-based primer followed by a super durable, outdoor durable powder top coat. A lot of those types of customers would find it highly advantageous to have a corrosion-resistant top coat that eliminates the use of or the need to use a primer. Last area that I'd kind of mention, and this is a sign of the times, but antimicrobial or antiviral powder coatings, that's an area ripe for development. And again, I think you have to gauge your customer base and your market to see if this is of interest. I would imagine it probably is. So these are just a few thoughts. Get back to me and let me know what you think. Thanks a lot, Joe.
All right, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
Gama's OptiStar all-in-one control unit leads the industry with a design fusing electrostatics and powder feed in one compact device. By combining the powder injector and control unit functionality into one device, you get the highest coating efficiency, fastest response times of powder output, and excellent cleaning performance. For more information about the OptiStar all-in-one, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gama.
The Powder Coating Research Group is a proud sponsor of the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. PCR is the only independent laboratory dedicated to powder coating technology. We do everything from raw material evaluation, formulating the next generation of coatings, new product development, testing, troubleshooting, training, and consulting. To find out more, visit our website at powdercoatingresearch.com, or you can email Kevin Biller at kevinbiller@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening to the Ask Joe Powder Podcast.
All right, what's our next question?
All right, our next question comes from Dario in Bosnia and Herzegovina. He says, "Hi, Joe. We're a medium-sized company from Bosnia, and we have our powder coating line with phosphate chemistry. Our company produces metal cabinets for different industries. We have a specific problem these days with RAL 7016 fine structure polyester. After we coat the parts, below the coating we can see traces from the phosphate. These traces are very visible, and we often have to recoat the part. Can you help us solve this problem? Is the problem the coating or the phosphate?" Best regards, Dario.
Hey, Dario. Hey, thanks for your question. And it seems like we're reaching our friends in the industry in Bosnia. It's great to hear from all of you. It's funny you said, is the problem a coating or is it the phosphate? Well, if you ask the chemical phosphate supplier, they're going to say, well, it's the coating. Yeah. And if you ask a powder coating dude, I'm going to say, hey, listen, you better look at your pretreatment. So anyway, I truly believe you have a pretreatment problem. And I think what you need to focus on here is rinsing. I think that the issue has to do with not getting the excess phosphate off the surface. And this could be exacerbated by the way your parts are hung. They may not allow the phosphate and the subsequent rinse to completely drain off the part. I've seen this many times in the past. You end up leaving a trail of a high concentration of phosphate, and that high concentration of phosphate will telegraph through the powder coating, as the powder coating melts and cures in your oven. So I would look carefully at your pretreatment system. And like I said, examine the parts before they're going into the powder coating application booth, and take a look around. See if these tracks or trails or defects can be associated with a way that the chemicals and rinse are coming off of your parts. So I hope this helps, and please, Dario, let me know if you have any more questions. Warm regards, Joe.
Okay, and one more question. This one comes from Abdullah in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He says, hello, Joe. Hope you're doing great. We have a question as we have a powder coating workshop. Some of our customers brought us non-conductive parts and want to change their colors with powder coating. We cannot do preheating and fluidized coating bed. What other alternatives do you recommend in order to get a non-conductive part powder coated? Do you recommend using a conductive primer?
Well, hey, Abdullah, thanks a lot for your question, and we do get this one from time to time. I would say absolutely use a conductive primer. Now, we use the term primer, and depending on your vantage, it could mean different things. One thing I would advise against, although you can look into it, is a coat of paint. People want to go to powder coatings, and it does seem like it's a tough sell if you tell them, well, you'll have to use a solvent-borne conductive primer as your first coat to get conductivity. I think there's a better path forward on that. What I would recommend is the use of a simple conductive solution. And, if you go back in the early days of electrostatic spray, and I'm talking about liquid spray, electrostatics, there was a product called Rand's Prep. And I think the patents ran out, 1,000 years ago. But anyway, basically this is a solution of a conductive material. It's a low concentration, usually 1 to 2% of a quaternary ammonium compound. And it's pretty specific. But anyway, a solution that can be in like an alcohol-based or acetone-based type carrier. Apply that, it flashes quickly, and it leaves a nice conductive surface on your non-conductive parts. In North America, there's a place called Chemical Technology Inc.com. I got to believe that they have similar suppliers in the Middle East. So if you have any further questions, let me know, and I really hope this helps. Best regards, Joe Powder. Before we wrap up, let's fill you in on some upcoming events.
Hey friends, where are we going?
To an upcoming event.
Okay, and a couple of these we already mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the news, but just run through these real quick. The Powder Coating Institute's Powder Coating Week has been moved to April. That's the one that takes place in Orlando.
Yep,
and it's
SeaWorld.
The combination of the powder coating workshop, the custom coaters
Association.
and the powder coating technical conference. The European Coating Show is in September. Abrafati, the Brazilian International Coating Show, that's also in September. And then we have the DSCT Focus Show, that's the 6th of May, 2021. Paint and Coatings in Barcelona, Spain. That one is the 1st and 2nd of June, 2021. The Eastern Coating Show in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the 9th through 11th of June, 2021. And where can they find the Ask Joe Powder print column?
For those of you who still use the print medium, you can find the Ask Joe Powder Q&A in Powder Coated Tough magazine, which is the flagship magazine of the Powder Coating Institute. You can find it in Europe in PPCJ, which is Polymers, Paint, and Color Journal. That gets published out of the UK. You can also find it on Paint and Coatings Industry Magazine's website, which is pcimag.com, and look under their Finishing Flash tab. So that's where you can find us in print and on the web.
And you can find our show online at askjoepowder.com. And we recommend subscribing to the podcast. We're on all of the major podcast apps, the Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. Now we're on Amazon and Audible. That's a recent addition. And you can check out our YouTube channel and our Twitter, which is AKA Joe Powder. If we didn't get to your question, the email address is askjoepowder@yahoo.com, or you can call and leave a message at country code 1-478-2-ASK-JOE. That's 1-478-227-5563. This has been a production of the Powder Coating Research Group. Our music, editing, and all the sound effects, things like that, it's done by Nick Page. Keep the change, you filthy animal.
And keep your powder dry.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Joe Powder Powdcast. This episode was brought to you by Gema. Are you looking for a solution to coat your most difficult products with no touch-up? Then Gema's dynamic contouring equipment is the right solution for you. Unlike robotic coating, dynamic contouring offers greater flexibility without all the programming hassle while correctly positioning each powder gun to automatically coat your parts. For more information, call 877-437-6771. Once again, that's 877-437-6771. And be sure to mention, Ask Joe sent me. When you want to know that everything is covered, complete it with Gema.
Okay, before we lap up, before we wrap up,
All right, that's a wrap. Last episode of 2020, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it started in March, and I think I can safely say we were at least the second worst thing to happen between March and now in 2020.
yeah. Well, hey, I take that back. Nathan looked at our ratings, feedback we get from the different metric analyzers, I guess, and we peaked at number 2 in the Netherlands for Apple Podcasts for inane chemistry podcast.
Chemistry category, yeah.
Yeah, I think we spelled chemistry wrong, and that's how.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'm just saying I think our podcast might be a super spreader. That's all I'm getting at.
Hopefully. I know our sponsors would like that. Let me know when you guys are ready. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Bring it up a little. Everybody ready for Christmas? Christmas, Christmas, Christmas.
No, not really.